This evening we are joined with Daniel Gade, the newly minted nominee for United States Senate, looking to take on Mark Warner this November. Mr. Gade, welcome. I'm surprised you're awake after such a tiring campaign.
Well, you know, Gary, I went to bed at 2 a.m. last night, and I woke up at about 7:30, just still sort of laughing to myself about how lovely that evening was. Resounding victory, a clear mandate to move forward with promoting our shared values in Washington, D.C., and I'm excited about this race.
Well, let's talk about that. I think that you were the favorite, but the numbers came out so overwhelmingly, it seemed there was a consensus almost towards the end that the party needed to get behind one candidate. Did you feel that out in the field?
Yeah, we sure did. You know, yesterday I got 205,000 votes plus a little bit, and that's more than any Republican has gotten statewide in Virginia since 1996, which is when John Warner was running, I think, for his fourth term. So what that means to me is that there's a clear consensus that people are ready for a new kind of politics. People are ready for inclusiveness and a winning message about bringing Virginia together, not just Republicans, but Republicans and independents and Democrats coming together to promote our shared values and to live in accordance with them. And that's the way I ran my campaign in the primary, very positive and issues oriented. And that's the way I'm going to run in the general as well, Gary.
Well, and there are many more votes, I'm sure, that will come in through the mail, even adding to that total. And you mentioned my old boss, John Warner. Of course, this is the open chain / Warner seat as it comes up on the calendar. And folks, we hear from our chamber is, you know, Mark Warner is not Tim Kaine. Tell us why you think a change is needed from the business community standpoint when it comes to Mark Warner.
Well, you know, what we've seen from Mark is a mismatch between the audio and the video, frankly. So what he said on the campaign trail is that he was going to be a centrist, that he was going to be pro-business, that he was going to promote business-friendly policies, that he was going to help balance the budget so that would help government get out of the way and all of that. And what we've actually seen with him is that as his party moves left, so does he. So he's in favor of greater regulation. He's in favor of greater government control. He's in favor of, you know, when they ask for higher tax votes, he takes higher tax votes. And fundamentally, you know, one of the things that really disturbed me during this COVID crisis was instead of focusing narrowly on helping businesses survive through that, you know, horrible, unprecedented downturn for those, you know, 3 months or 4 months, or hopefully not again in the fall, instead of focusing narrowly on that, he went along with his party and called for $1 trillion bailout for failing state and local governments elsewhere in the country. So in California and Illinois and New York, where, you know, there are concentrations of powerful Democrats. And he said, oh, sure, you know, send Virginia's money to those places. And I think that's the wrong approach, and I'd fight against that.
Well, Senator, you mentioned the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, of course, was of great interest to our members, as you can appreciate. 48 hours before it started, the president of Town Bank, Morgan Davis, came on our air, and I'm pleased to say that every one of our members who applied were in fact funded. There seemed to be some discrepancy in the handling of that as to the minority communities, and really it depended on which bank you had, not whether you had a bank. And the other thing that our members were concerned about was the unemployment paying over $50,000 a year, trying to get employees back. Could you address those two portions of the plan?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what we're going to see, anytime you have an emergency government spending package that's as large as that one, of course, there's going to be fraud, waste, abuse, you know, rough edges that don't quite work in actual reality. And that's part of what happened with PPP. The other part of what happened with that whole CARES Act and all that is the Congress larded it up, if you will, with a bunch of stuff unrelated to COVID relief for small and medium businesses and individuals, which is where it should have been. So that's part one, is they tried too hard to load it up with all of their pent up priorities and things like the Kennedy Center famously and some other things. And all of that is ridiculous. This release should have been narrowly focused on where it matters most, which is individuals, small and medium-sized businesses, frankly. And I'm in favor of things like a payroll tax holiday. If we're going to get relief to working families and relief to businesses that are under pressure, let's do a payroll tax holiday. And Mark Warner, with his background as supposedly as a businessman, although I've got some questions there that he's going to have to answer, fundamentally, he was in a position to lead his party in the right direction. And what did he do? He just drifted left with them and called for these absurd bailouts. So that's on that front. And then on the issue of the unemployment stuff, it's no surprise, right? I've been working with veterans, like helping reform the veterans disability system for a very long time, and focused on veterans thriving. And instead of large cash payments, what we ought to be doing is early and vigorous rehabilitation to help veterans thrive. And the reason is because if you give people more money to stay out of the labor market than they would get if they were in the labor market, of course people are going to opt out. I mean, it's a supply and demand issue. It's Econ 101. But Congress doesn't understand Econ 101. I used to teach it, and I'm ready to go with this issue. Because if you offer people more money, the $600 bonus a week to stay out of the labor market, you're going to have things like that one, and I don't remember her name, I think it was Linda, who was a small business owner who tried to hire back her employees and said, hey, congratulations, we can all come back to work. And some of them were really mad at her because that meant that their pay was going to get cut because they were getting an extra bonus of $600 a week to stay home. So, government, fundamentally, Gary, we all know this, it's easy. When government tries to do something big, it often stomps on what matters. And that's what we saw when they wrote that bill. And that's why it's hard to rehire people, because they don't want to, oftentimes they don't want to come back for a lower wage.
And Mr. Gade, should you make it to the big house up there, the first thing I learned back in 78, 79 is the most important and long-lasting consequences of any legislation you pass will be those that are completely unknown and unintended. And you and I have had that conversation here in my office. For those who have not known you before you leave us, and we appreciate your time, you must be the man most in demand today with the election last night. But same oath, new mission.
Right.
Explain that to the folks who in our chamber who haven't had a chance to meet you in person about your personal story.
Well, sure. I mean, I'll just keep it brief. You can read the rest of it on my website, gadeforvirginia.com. But basically, I served for 25 years in the U.S. Army under an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And my service cost me dearly. I lost a leg at the hip. I spent a year in the hospital recovering from combat wounds. And when I look at service, when I think about service to the country, service to the Constitution, that's what keeps me going, is realizing that this is the document, this system of government is the thing that has been the greatest blessing to human beings in all of the history of humanity. And so what we need to do is support and defend it. And that's the oath that a senator takes. So when we talk about the same oath, Army officer and senator take the same oath, but the mission is different. And my mission as U.S. Senator will be different from what my mission was as an Army officer years ago.
Same oath that they gave me at the White House back in 1982. Right. We all take the same oath. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service that you've already provided, but thank you for being willing to take on this very difficult task. One of our founding principles here at the Chamber is to try to return civility to the public square. So as you meet off with Senator Warner, and when he's on our air, we will share the same thoughts. Point out the sharp disagreements, but do so with a smile. Stay safe on the campaign trail, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
And one more time, your website?
It's GADEFOR and the word Virginia.com, gadeforvirginia.com. And I'd love to have the support of the folks in the chamber. I know some of you are Democrats, but guess what? A lot of my supporters are Democrats too. And a lot of them, all the Republicans are behind me, a lot of independents and Democrats. So you won't be the first Democrat if you decide to support me. So please join the Gade Brigade and march on to November victory.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Right.